Hey everybody, how we doing? Welcome to the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room. I am Jason C, and thanks for coming by. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everybody. Tonight we are talking turkey. That's right, we have a great show lined up for tonight. We have tonight my special guest, David Jennings, from the most amazing blog for a turkey lover in the world, and just a bourbon lover. It's great reading, amazing reviews, and great knowledge of wild turkey. This is David Jennings. Say hi, David.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so David was kind enough to come on the channel, and we're definitely talking some turkey. If you can't talk to Jimmy or Eddie Russell, then your next best bet is David. So we'll learn some cool info from him tonight. We have a couple of cool bottles that we have poured already that we're going to be talking about and kind of what's so special about them. But before we get started, I just want to say hi to everybody in the chat like I normally do. We had a bunch of people that came in pretty early, so I want to say hi to Ryan Alves, the Dan, the man Trout. How you doing? Carl H, Christopher David, Brian Walsh. Everyone's got their wild turkeys out already. I'm already seeing in the chat. Juan Quintanilla. Let's see here. Jason Estel's in the house. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for coming in. Andrew Spurrell, Christine Deems, my blending expert. She's in the house. William Davilar, Rob Davey, Whiskey Ace is here. Santa Cruzin, Steven Sussman. Hey, Steven, thanks again. I got to send you a message. Thanks again. Steven Sussman just became a brand new patron. I really appreciate it. Hey, Whiskey in the Six. Rob is here. He's in the house. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for coming in. Loch Ness, Donner Pass Whiskey, Stephen Connor, Peter White.
Wow.
Yeah,
got a lot of folks here.
A lot of folks. Rarebird 101, he's in the chat, and Brandon Weiss. So we got a full house already. We got already 39 in the chat. So everyone settle in, pour some turkey because we're about to get into some cool stuff. So before we get started, for those of you who do not know David Jennings and do not know about his blog, David, why don't you tell us a little bit about your blog and what kind of turned you on into being the wild turkey expert you are?
Okay, well, of course, my name's David, and I have a blog called rarebird101.com, and it is basically a wild turkey fan site. I don't consider myself a wild turkey expert as much as I do a super fan, but I do dig a little deep. But, you know, my love for wild turkey, it goes back a few years ago. You know, really, I mean, I'd always enjoyed, I'm in my 40s now, I'd always enjoyed a bourbon and Coke, a cocktail, this type of thing in the 90s back when I was in college. And it was always like Jim and Coke or Jack and Coke or even Crown and Coke, not bourbon, but, you know, and that lasted for years. And it wasn't until, you know, I'd say 6 years ago or so, you know, I was at my brother-in-law's house and he had poured me a whiskey on the rocks, and I thought, you know, this is nice. And it kind of got me interested into maybe trying to find something like the perfect whiskey. You know, everybody kind of starts off and goes on this journey for the perfect whiskey. And so I started doing some research and getting books and magazines, and I was trying Scotch, Irish, Canadian, and just whatever I could get my hands on in pints and half pints, whatever. You know, at first I'm trying to find all these, you know, highly sought after whiskeys that everybody, you know, wants to find, like Weller 12 and this kind of stuff. And of course you don't find it. Yep. But, you know, in my purchases, I would grab different pints of this, that. And one time I grabbed a pint of, I said, I'd like a pint of Wild Turkey 101. And, you know, my recollection and as far as my knowledge at that time, you know, of whiskey was that Wild Turkey 101 was kind of bottom shelf, you know, rock gut, whatever you want to call it. It was kind of like the party bourbon, you know?
Yeah, that's how I basically was introduced to it in college, Wild Turkey 101. So yeah, and just like you said, I use it as a mixer. I didn't understand the beauty of it neat, like you did. But before we keep going, I want to call out Rob from Whiskey in the Six. Thank you so much, buddy, for the super chat. He said, "Cheers, brother." Thank you so much, Rob. I really appreciate it.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks again. Cheers to that. Thank you again, Rob. Really appreciate that super chat. So just like you, I didn't really know it as the beautiful spirit that we know today, and I wish I did. because there was definitely some flavor profile differences in the 80s to now, or
Yeah.
90s, I should say.
Yeah. It was one of these things where I wasn't expecting a lot out of it.
Yeah.
And when I tried it, I was like, well, this doesn't taste bad. This tastes like better than most of the stuff I've been buying.
Yeah.
And it really kind of threw me for a loop because I had these, preconceived notions about, what a bottom shelf whiskey was. And so all that went out the window with that poor Wild Turkey 101. And so I had mentioned it on Reddit, that I was, I would kind of chat up about, Wild Turkey 101. And someone reached out to me and said, hey, have you ever had Dusty Wild Turkey 101? And of course I had not. And he sent me some samples. He sent me an 81, 101 8-year and a Cheesy Gold Foil from 92. And I was blown away. I mean, it was better than anything I had tasted up to that point.
Yeah.
By a good margin. And, I was hooked. And so I immediately started searching, for an expression similar with what was on the shelf, at the time, which is not very realistic. But, I just started trying every single Wild Turkey expression I could get my hands on. And, I never found that Dusty profile, but what I did find was a hell of a lot of profiles that I loved. and it just pulled me in. And I don't know, it's just something about it. And the more I got to researching, I started learning about the Russell family. I started learning about Lawrenceburg. I started learning about this great history of bourbon making that in my mind, or, from what I was gathering, just seems so genuine compared to a lot of the whiskey brands that are out there now. Not that a lot of those whiskey brands don't have great background stories and this type of thing, but there was something very genuine about Wild Turkey. And
I think one of the things that's not talked about enough is the fact that Wild Turkey uses one mash bill, and the different flavors and profiles they get from the way they age, the way they have like 3 different locations now for aging, correct?
Active locations, right? They have 3. They have 2 offsite, and then they have Tyrone. And they have 29 rick houses, right?
Yeah. So the differences in flavor profiles that you could find between the Camp Nelson bottles, the ones that are close to home. I mean, it's just using that one mash bill, I think, is one of the things that doesn't get talked about enough. So when you look at a Four Roses that has, they could do about 15,000 different type of recipes for different flavor profiles. Wild Turkey uses that one mash bill, and they get so much flavor, different flavors out of different bottles. It's really astounding to me. That's one of the things that's always amazed me about Turkey.
Right. And what I really liked was that last week on Bourbon Pursuit, there was an episode with Eddie Russell, which everyone should listen to, because
that was great.
Yeah, for the first time in length, Eddie kind of goes into the whole rick house thing, which a lot of people have been chomping at the bit to hear, and it was really neat to hear about how he uses the floors, to create different expressions, different rick houses, and combinations of floors to make different expressions. And it was real interesting hearing about the old rare breed, that it mostly came from the top floors, and now the newer rare breed is kind of a combination more of spread out. These are the kind of things that I love to hear, that we've wanted to know for a long time. And you're right, it's all one mash bill. Of course, they have the rye mash bill, but that's a different whiskey.
Yeah. I'm talking about strictly the bourbon.
Strictly the bourbon, you have that one recipe. And there's been some changes in entry proof and that type of thing. But for the most, it's the same. It's been the same. There's people nitpick on the fermentation tanks going from wood to steel and these types of things. And yes, all that plays a role in the flavor. But that said, I think that what we have now, what's coming out of Wild Turkey now, the 101, the 10-year, the Russell's Reserve single barrel, is just it's a level that we haven't seen for a while. And
pick wise, some of the recent picks I've had, I mean, very recent picks, have been some of the best bourbons I've tasted, and I'm not just talking Turkey, I'm talking ever.
Right.
So, But also, I thought, and you kind of mentioned the part about the entry proof, which I found fascinating for the entry proof. You know, they're going in now at what, 101 or 110, 115?
115 now.
115 now. And they're, you know, they get that 110 and they have to proof it down. Sometimes it comes out at a higher ABV, depending on how it's aging. But he says the flavors in there, and as you mentioned, as they mix the barrels, I mean, that part to me was really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that it should be said that Eddie's skill is tremendous. I think that we everyone loves Jimmy, and Jimmy's contributions to the bourbon industry are really unparalleled in my opinion. But what you taste now, what's coming out now, is mostly coming from the hands of Eddie Russell. And he is just making phenomenal whiskey right now. I mean, the expressions are they're blowing me away.
Yeah, he told a really great story about about his dad and how he mostly, you know, he's a big advocate for turkey, and you could just find him hanging out in the visitor center, just saying hi to everybody, signing bottles, and being that patron of bourbon that we all know he is.
Right.
But I thought the amazing thing was when Eddie mentioned that he'll go to Jimmy and just say, "Hey, what do you think of this idea?" And he'll just say, "It's not going to work." Still, you know, he just has that innate knowledge of knowing, like, if you do that, you're going to do this, and he could pretty much give you the entire future of what their idea is going to be before it's even realized.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of folks know this already, but Eddie said for the longest time he thought his name was No, because that was all he heard from Jimmy. So
that's right. He's like, we already have a No at Beam. Stop. All right, so actually, real quick, is Camp Nelson probably your favorite juice where it's coming out of right now?
Well, right now, that's pretty much what you're getting. Within the last few months and into this year, most of your private barrels are going to be from Camp Nelson, either A or F. I've heard that there are some K barrels that are going to be in the selection program this year.
Wow.
Tyrone K.
Yeah.
But for right now, this Camp Nelson is what you're going to find. Now, I'll be honest with you. The Camp Nelson profile threw me for a curve when I first tried it. I wasn't the biggest fan at first. That might surprise a lot of people. When I did my barrel pick with Eddie last year, they were all Camp Nelson. And I literally, I nosed all 5 that were in front of me. And of course, Eddie always has more for you to try. But
one of the most generous barrel picks that you'll go.
Yes, on definitely. and I was just kind of like, this isn't what I'm used to, and so I had to really dig. I had to really kind of, go through each one very carefully. And I've come to, over the last few months, really appreciate the Camp Nelson vibe, especially F, which is kind of an oddball. A lot of folks tend to go towards A. A to me seems a little bit more classic turkey.
I would agree with you. I probably would lean towards the F than the A. Yeah.
I want something different, in a private selection. And I've had some good A's. They're fine. But the F's, it's like there's always some kind of little twist there. It's like, you think you know me, and you nose it, and you're like, I think I know what you're going to taste like, and then you taste like that's not what you smelled like,
Yeah, I got to tell you that some of the recent Russell's Reserve picks that I've mentioned, even some of the regular just single barrels in the store, the nose is being a little bit almost
deceiving.
It's very deceiving. What I'm getting on the nose is not what I'm getting on the palate most of the times, and it's usually 9 times out of 10 it's a good thing. So
right. Yeah, I mean, I like something different. If they all were the same, there'd really be no point in having a private selection. And I'm not going to name names, but there's other distilleries out there that they have all these private selections, and to me, there's really not a whole lot of difference from the private selection than the shelf. And call me crazy, But, you know, like I said, I'm not going to say it, especially when they're down to like 90 proof. You know, you're really kind of not really going to find a whole lot of not like Russell's Reserve.
Yeah, that kind of kills me when they tell you, okay, well, here's your selections from the barrel, but we're going to cut it to this, and then we're going to chill filter it. It's like, okay, so it's not going to taste like this,
right?
So you know that gets into, you know, being a little bit, you know, it's like almost kind of, all right, well, that's not really what I picked, but so one last question before we get into whiskey, before we get into the bourbons. What's your feeling on age statements? So we had, you know, the 8-year age statement came off, you know, the bottle, you know, not that long ago. You know, I want to kind of get your feelings on it, and then and this isn't just a wild turkey thing. This is an industry thing. That's
sure. Okay. Well,
what are kind of your feelings on it? I have my feelings, but go ahead.
Okay. To me, in general, okay, an age statement is a beautiful thing. I'm not going to lie. I like to see, you know, on paper how long a whiskey has aged. Just for my own curiosity. But at the end of the day, what really matters most is how something tastes. And we're going to see that tonight with Saffel. Saffel doesn't have an age statement. And I don't want to spoil anything. But, okay, so there's that if you want my opinion in general. Now, if I can reel it into wild turkey, I think it's important that folks think about this. You know, yes, the 8-year age statement is gone from 101. But if you want 8-year wild turkey, get Russell's Reserve single barrel, because Russell's Reserve single barrel is typically 8 to 10 years old, and it's 110 proof from an entry proof of 115. So there's a 5-point difference from what it went into the barrel at. Okay.
Yep.
The old wild turkey 101 8-year had a 107 entry proof going down to 101. There's 6 points of proof difference there. Okay. You know, in my opinion, you know, yes, there's a difference in the label, but what you're getting in Russell's Reserve single barrel is essentially what you were getting in wild turkey 101 8-year. Now, people are going to say, oh, there's, you know, dusty turkey. Okay, fine. I got it. You know, there's a difference between dusty turkey and modern turkey. There's a difference between dusty any whiskey and modern any whiskey. Okay. But I'm just saying, as far as what's in the bottle, you know, you're going to have a similar bourbon. So I don't really need the 8-year age statement to come back on my 101. I have modern 101 8-year from Japan in my cabinet, and it doesn't really taste any different than wild turkey 101. Matter of fact, the 2018 mid-year 2018 101 no age statement is better than the 2017 101 8-year I have in my cabinet. It just is. and so people make a big deal about this now, that if they would bring the 12-year 101 back, I would buy it by the case. I mean, that's one I would like to have back. But I don't think it's as big of a deal as people make it. It depends on the producer. Let's say that.
Yeah,
I think that you got to know who it's coming from.
Yeah, and you just kind of guided me into my feelings on it. I think certain distilleries have a pedigree of where you can trust a non-age statement, because you know you're getting quality stuff.
Right.
There are other whiskeys out there, other bourbons that, you know, it would be nice to have that age statement, but I'm kind of falling the side where you're talking about, where it's a nice to have, but as long as the whiskey is good, you know, I can live without it. But I just feel like there are certain distilleries more than others where I feel like I would like it. As far as wild turkey, that is not one of the distilleries I feel like I know I'm going to get quality there.
Right. That's the most important thing. And it's the same way in Scotch. I mean, I know a lot of people are big on age statements with Scotch, but something like, you know, Aberlour or Abna, it doesn't have an age statement, and it's one of my favorite Scotches. So you know, it doesn't have to have. You got to know who you're getting it from, and is it worth what you're paying for?
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get into the bourbon here, I want to say hi to a couple other people in the chat that chimed in. We have Eric Waite just came in. Guys, this Friday night, I'm going to be on Eric Waite's channel. He is holding Bourbon Month, so I'm going to be on with Eric Waite, so that should be fun. Texas Owl's in the house. Richie Z, want to say hi to you. Scotty from My Bourbon Journey. Had a couple of other guys jump in. If I missed you, Jim Shannon, Brian Brennicky, DH Silv, all you guys. Thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it. If I missed you, I'm sorry, but I'm going to try. We're going to save a few minutes at the end here for everyone to get in their questions if they want to know anything turkey related. So, all right, it is time to get into some bourbon here. So, our first bourbon tonight, our first pour is going to be the Russell's Reserve 10-year. And there's something a little bit special about this bottle before we get into it. And David, I'll let you I'll talk about the 101, but why don't you get into the Russell's?
Okay. So if you listened to Bourbon Pursuit last week, Eddie mentioned that there's 13-year in the 10-year Russell's Reserve from 2018, because that recording was in 2018. And so I thought, hey, let's pick up some, mid to, end of the year, whatever, Russell's Reserve 10-year and see if we can tell. So I've got, mine is an August bottle. And I compared it against a 2017 I have. And what was interesting, and I don't know if you want me to get into this yet or not, but what was interesting is at first I couldn't tell any difference in the nose. Okay. All
right. Well, let's stop there and let me know some of these, because I do have one here that I'm gonna compare it against. That's an older bottle.
Okay.
So let me pour the older bottle here, and then I could kind of compare it.
Yeah, and what you might find, what I found is you have to give it some time.
Yeah.
And I always give time, but I had to give it some extra time.
Yeah. Well, I poured the recent one.
Good.
I poured that out about a half hour before the show.
Okay.
I've been sitting out a little bit. Yeah, the 10-year that I'm comparing it to, I've had out for a little while. So
yeah, and just to be clear, I talked to Bruce about this, Bruce Russell. He mentioned to me that, producers are always putting in older barrels, older than what's on the age statement. It's just that, this past year, it sounds like they had a little bit more of the older barrels than they've had in years past.
Yeah.
If that's true, we should be able to tell at least a little bit. Now, the 90 proof kind of is going to make that a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. So for those of Russell's Reserve, 10 years old, comes in at 90 proof. Damn it, I spilled a little bit on the label. I hate when I do that. So
Bourbon tears.
There's a reason why we're comparing here, because we'll get into that a little bit from if you watch the Pursuit series, Bourbon Pursuit, the interview they did. He mentioned something very special about the Russell's 10-year. So the newer bottle, yeah, I'm not getting much of a difference on the nose.
No, it's not a tremendous difference. What you'll find is if you let them sit for a while, and you come back and you're very critical, there is a darker tone with the modern. It's just a little bit darker. The 2017 I have was just a tad brighter. Now, I didn't see much of a color difference, but to me, it's looking like there's a little bit difference. But you got two different glasses, so that's hard to,
Yeah, I mean, if I had to gauge it, it does look slightly darker in the older ones, but I mean, very, very slightly.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And it's just like I said, there's a darker, rounder tone to the 2018 in comparison to the 2017. Now that's on the nose.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it does. It smells a bit richer on the nose.
Right. Yeah, I'd go with that. Richer will work.
Yeah. All right, I'm going in for my first sip here of the newer one.
Cheers,
everybody. For those of you who don't know, we are hanging out here with David Jennings from Rare Bird 101. Has an amazing blog online for all things wild turkey. He breaks down flavor profiles. He breaks down rickhouse locations, the variances, dusty, modern, kind of mid-year type turkey bottles. I mean,
everything.
If you love wild turkey, then that's the place to go. It's Rare Bird 101. Definitely go check it out. And plus, he's just an amazing writer too. So.
Oh, thank you, man. That's too kind.
All right, let's see here. Let's. Yeah. So straight off the bat, I wouldn't taste it. I wouldn't taste any really variance in the beginning of the palate, but the finish is where I'm getting the variance.
It has more oak to it. And I think that what would be an interesting test, and you can do this your free time whenever,
Yeah.
would be to take that 13 year that you have on the barrel back there and compare it to the 10, because I would be tempted to believe, I don't have any 13 on hand, but I'm tempted to say that you're probably going to find something similar there. So you're going to have a lot of similarities.
All right. Well, if we have time, maybe we'll crack that open a little later.
Yeah, that can be, on another night or whatever. But
No,
I recommend trying it.
We can do it tonight. We can open.
Okay. All righty. Let's roll.
All right, so this is the older one here, or I should say this is the one that was already open.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the nose, not as much difference as I mentioned, and this bottle's been open for a little bit. So let me go. Yeah, let me go for a sip here. Yeah, and maybe this is because it's been open a little bit. It's a little bit more of a bitter oak there, but not nearly as that sweet oak that I'm getting on this one. Not as oaky. It's kind of staying sweet, and it just kind of tails off real quick.
Right. That's the finish is shorter.
Yep.
And it just kind of has a real inoffensive, just simple bourbon taste, and that's what Russell's Reserve 10-year traditionally to me has always been. If someone's looking for, what does bourbon taste like? Russell's Reserve 10-year is a good one for someone to try.
It's always been super well balanced. The one thing on the 10 though that I get, and you let me know this, the one thing on the 10-year that I get out of more than any other Russells is I get that slight bit of a leathery type note to it.
Yep.
And I'm not sure why I only usually get that on the 10. I mean, I get it on some Russell's Reserve picks, but consistently on the 10, I get a little bit of a leather note there, which I always find pretty fascinating.
I think it's just the age being diluted down. I think that if you were to take some Russells of similar age, as long as they weren't off profile, I think you'd have a similar result.
Oh yeah. Now you go back to the newer bottle.
Yep.
The newer bottle, yeah, the finish, the oak, the balance on that is just way more. It's way more. I mean, it's not super. It doesn't super punch you in the face, but it's got more of a depth to it. And
right.
Yeah.
It's not quite the difference that you find in 101 from 17 to 18.
Correct.
But there's less dilution there.
Yeah.
I think that had the other been 101 proof, you would taste even more different.
It doesn't, and this is kind of the best way I could describe it. It doesn't taste like it's been diluted down to 90. It tastes like it'd be a higher proof just because of the richer flavors in there.
It's got more complexity, right?
Absolutely. So, so the reason why this Russell's has this is because on the podcast, on the interview, Eddie Russell mentioned that there is 13-year bourbon now mixed in to this 10-year Russell's.
Right.
Russell's. Now it's only certain bottles, and you want to get into your geeky side and get into the bottle codes.
I don't. Well, for example, this one is an LLGH, which is the G is 2018, the H is August because A would be January, B February, etc. But I think that also what you might be tasting here in this 10-year is that they're pulling barrels from Camp Nelson now. It would not surprise me if in this bottle are Camp Nelson barrels, and Camp Nelson has that really kicking profile. Yeah, where it just really punches you, with that funk.
It does.
And so I think that might be some of what you're tasting as well. The difference between 17 and 18.
It's definitely a beautiful, sweet, oaky funk to it. That's really nice. So for you guys watching, on the Russell's Reserve bottle, and I'm going to try to find it here.
It's a laser code, usually at the bottom, not on the underside, just on the bottom of the glass, and it's sometimes hard to find without a good light.
Here in the middle, right on the bottom, it's very faint.
Right, that's where mine's at too. Exactly.
Yeah, but if you go into the store and you read it, and it says LL/G, and then you'll have the rest of the letters there.
Right.
That Russell's Reserve 10-year bourbon has 13-year probably Camp Nelson juice in it.
I would shoot for mid-year too. I would try to shoot for something maybe like maybe F or G, H, I, J, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I have the H, and you can definitely
Okay.
get the difference. So this is LL/G8.
So we've got the same stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So as David mentioned, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, those are kind of the way they say the months. So if you go about mid-year, LL/G, and then a mid-year month.
I would shoot for GG, GH, GI. That's what I did with 101.
Yeah.
And this seems to be about the same ballpark. I could be completely wrong, but my taste buds aren't wrong. I can tell you there's a difference between what I'm tasting and the 2017 I have.
Yeah, big difference. So I would go, go check it out. So William Davilar is asking, is that true? They're blending in 13 or 15 in the rare breed as well?
I've been told that, yes, that there is some extra aged barrels in the rare breed. Matter of fact, on Reddit, Bruce Russell was talking about the 101 having the extra age in it because of Long Branch. And someone asked, and I just recently caught this because I did not realize this part of the conversation was in there till later. Someone asked about rare breed, and they said, I heard rare breed has some older stuff in it. And he replied back and said, yes, rare breed was one of the labels that ended up getting some extra aged barrels in it as well. So someone sent me a sample of LLGG. So that would be a July rare breed from 2018. And it was notably better than my 2017 rare breed 116.8. So as soon as I can get my hands on a mid-year or late year rare breed, I'm definitely doing that. So I tasted the difference, yes.
Oh, so that's my next hunt, and I got to go look for an LLGG rare breed. Thanks.
GG, somewhere around there. I think you'll be doing good.
All right. Yep. And that's interesting because that's now going to bring us to the Wild Turkey 101. So as you mentioned, the Wild Turkey 101. So the story was, guys, that this is kind of the same thing. Mid-year last year, the 8-year-old. So we all know that Wild Turkey 101 is about 8 years old. So is Long Branch. And what they did was Long Branch has been actually selling very well. What they did, they were running out of a little bit of the 8-year-old bourbon. So to finish off some of the Wild Turkey 101 bottles or the barrels and the blending, they had to add some 10-year-old bourbon into it. You correct me on the story if I got a little bit wrong.
No,
is that pretty much right, David?
That's basically it. I think it's that. And I think that I think there's a couple things going on. I think it's mainly that there's some additional 10-year in here.
Yeah.
Again, I think there's barrels coming from Camp Nelson because that's just what's in season. And so you're getting some of that Camp Nelson funk in there. I've not confirmed that. That's just my theory. And I think that Eddie is really, I think he's showing off. I do. I think Eddie is like, you know what? I'm gonna make some good whiskey now. And boy, is he doing that. And this 101 is a testament, to the quality that can come from Wild Turkey. In the last few years, I would say when you go back to around the time that Eddie was named Master Distiller in 2015, all of a sudden you started having these amazing expressions coming out with the Master's Keep. You had 17 and Decades and Revival. You had his collaboration with McConaughey.
Revival was one of those ones, and I have it right here. I still have some left, but I got to say, when I first tasted it, I was not impressed.
Really?
I mean, I was impressed, but I didn't get, right off the bat, I wasn't getting the deep, rich, sweet flavors and those variances that came in from a sherry finished bourbon until kind of the bottle got down to the shoulder. And then it became something very special. And I absolutely love that bottle because people do sherried whiskeys and they over sherry it. I feel like for whatever Eddie did with his beautiful alchemy, he had the exact right blend of a sherried bourbon, and it wasn't over sherried. You could still get the bourbon through there, the classic Wild Turkey flavor, but the sherry note on there was just enough to make it just beautifully different, and it became one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think a lot of people went into it expecting this huge sherry bomb.
Yeah.
And I love that it wasn't, because to me, I used to be a big sherry bomb fan, but I can take huge doses of sherry as long as there's something to balance it out. Like I mentioned the Aberlour Abna, and the reason why I like Abna so much is it's got a lot of sherry influence in it, but it has apparently some younger whiskey and there's something that gives it vibrance. And so it balances that out.
It really does. Yeah, and I feel like the sherry barrels, whatever he selected, it brought out the best in what Wild Turkey offers. And I really feel like, you know, if you don't spend time with that bottle, you're going to miss that.
Yeah, it's one that it makes you pause, because the first time I tried it and I nosed it, I was like, what are these notes? Like I had a very hard time picking notes out. I was like, okay, it's bourbon, and I'm getting some, like, you know, some kind of grape notes or raisins or something, but I had to put it down and kind of walk away and kind of recollect, you know, my thoughts and think, okay, I've just got to go into this not thinking about Wild Turkey. Yeah. Because you have these notes that you're expecting from Wild Turkey, and they weren't there at first. It was like they were spun. So yes, Revival takes some time, but I mean, it's not for everyone, but for those that love it, they really love it. And it's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, it's become a huge favorite of mine, and I'm glad I still have a little bit left. I shared a lot a so that was kind of nice. But
that's always a good thing.
Yeah, it's always a good thing to share. So, all right, guys. So now I have the Wild Turkey, as we mentioned, the Wild Turkey 101, which has, we said, some 10-year juice in there. Now, the bottle codes on this one is kind of along the same lines.
That's right, same lines.
Yeah, same lines. You're looking for LL/GG, GH, or GI.
Right. And I've actually had some folks that I trust tell me that the GJ is amazing.
Okay.
So we don't know when it started and when it stopped. The only way to know that for yourself is just to try it. And I recommend, the good news about 101 is you can buy it in every size, shape, and form.
That's the thing.
Plastic minis, you know, half pint.
I found a traveler.
Yeah.
It was the only one I found that had those codes on it. And this is the one that I grabbed, and it tastes different. It's got the code on the back. This is a GG. So GG, GH, GI, and even maybe now some GJ. Yeah. Got some of that 10-year-old juice in it. And
matter of fact, shout out to Ryan, who's in the chat.
Yeah,
he's the one that told me about the GJ, and I trust Ryan.
What's his last name?
Ryan Alves.
Ryan Alves. Thank you so much, Ryan. Appreciate that, man. Because of you. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I trust his opinion on that, and you know, I think it's fun because, you know, everybody hunts for different bottles, and a lot of these bottles are expensive, you know, from all different, you know, distilleries.
Yeah,
and it's hard to find something that you can have fun chasing that's cheap, unless it's a Dusty, and you're not going to find a lot of those anymore. So this kind of gives you something to do. I mean, you can go hunting for Wild Turkey 101 on the cheap, because you can, like I said, you can get minis, half pints, whatever. So when you're out hunting, if you feel like, oh, I didn't find anything today, or I didn't find anything at this store, before you walk out, ask for a pint behind the counter. Say, can I just look at that 101 real quick? And they'll look at you weird, like, what are you doing? Because you're looking at codes. And I don't know how many times the store people have looked at me like, what the hell?
Yeah, that's what I did at my Kroger. The poor bastard was stocking bottles. I'm like, can I see that bottle? Can I see that one? No, not that one. Let me see that one.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, yes. I'm like, and then he pulled out the Travelers.
Yeah.
That's when I found this one. I'm like, oh my God, you guys got it in the Travelers. I'm taking it. And I bought like 4 of them. So
it makes it fun.
I'm going to compare the Wild Turkey from last year to the one that I pulled from the Traveler. So let's get into that nose, because there are some very distinct flavor differences, especially on the nose that I've gotten.
Yeah, the 101 between last year and this year are notably different, in my opinion. I mean, you know, if you haven't been doing this a long time, don't be discouraged if you can't tell a lot of the differences. It comes in time. Yeah. But, you know, if you've been sipping whiskey for a long time and you've been an enthusiast for a long time, it's going to hit you in the face pretty quickly, the differences between this year and last year.
I think the most stark difference that I get in between them is on the 101, I get a much more deep almond nutty character to it. On the newer one with the GG, which is one of those notes that usually the cinnamon and that orange peel kind of smack me in the face on the nose normally with the Russells, but this one I get almost a nutty oaky character to it, which I really like, and that's probably from a little bit of the older juice in there.
Right.
Yeah, you still get that typical, that really beautiful vanilla charred oak flavor in the 101, right on the nose.
Yeah, and like with the differences between the 2018 and 2017 Russell's Reserve 10, there's just an overall darker tone, a rounder tone,
Again,
a fuller tone, deeper tone, richer tone.
It's a richer nosing. It's a richer drinking experience. Really
Right,
nice.
more developed.
Definitely more developed.
Definitely not bottom shelf.
No,
I mean,
no.
For those that are still in that mindset, abandon that, because that is not Wild Turkey 101.
Yeah. All right, I am going into the palate. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oak char, baking spices, cinnamon, cherry. But like you said, it's richer, it's deeper, it's darker than, well, let me take a sip of water here. Then I'm going to go into the one from last year.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, there's oak char, there's cinnamon, there's nutmeg, brown sugar. I can get some cherry in there. Yes, some dark cherry.
Yeah, see, the one I had just from last year is way more. Now, I always find it interesting that Wild Turkey brands it as a high rye, but what is only about 13, 14?
It's a medium rye. Yeah, it's a medium rye.
It's a medium rye. It's not super high rye, but they kind of brand it that way.
Right.
But the rye note on 101 from last year, the one thing that I always get from a higher rye mash bill is I get a really nice punch of cinnamon, a little bit of chocolate that I get. And I get that more on one from last year, whereas the one I'm sipping now, that special bottle code, is super rich. It's definitely got the brown sugar, as you mentioned in here, is way more prevalent.
Right. Yeah, you don't get a whole lot of brown sugar in the older 101 from the last couple of years. You get it in Russell's Reserve single barrel. But it's in 101 this year. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've had a few Russell's Reserve picks, very few, not most, but very few, that aren't that much better than this year's 101. I mean, I hate to say that, but 101's that good.
That's delicious. So guys, if you want to do some hunting, I highly recommend finding those bottle codes on a 101, hunting it down, because there is a very noticeable difference, and it's definitely for the better. It's really good.
Yeah, definitely. And it makes it fun. Like I said, you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to drive too far, and you can walk out like having a victory. I mean, how many times you go into a store and you walk out like, I didn't get anything. Yeah. Now you can come out with something.
Who thought I'd be buying this and skipping out of
Kroger?
Like I just found like a pappy. I'm like skipping out of Kroger with this bottle. Like, yes, I was so excited. All right, so let's see with anything. Oh, Jim Shannon in the chat, he said he bought a case of it.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, I don't blame him either.
But let's hope that the quality continues. But it's not like he's losing. He's going to have that for as long as he needs it.
Let's see. Rick Haskew's in the house. How you doing, Rick? Thank you for coming in. He's one of my patrons. Appreciate it. Ryan Alves just said that I heard Wild Turkey described today as high malted barley instead of high rye, which he thinks is more appropriate.
Well, that's an interesting spin. I'll have to talk with you about that later, Ryan.
I don't know if David agrees with you, Ryan. Let's see. Okay, so what time we got? Oh, it's 9:43 already. Jeez. So
we're all right.
Yeah, we're all right. So let's go into the brand new Whiskey Baron edition, Whiskey Baron's collection, called the
Saffel.
WB Saffel bourbon. So this is the bottle, guys. It's WB Saffel. And if you guys haven't heard of this collection, so this is from Campari. This is their Whiskey Baron collection. Made its debut, spring 2017, I believe.
Right. The original.
Yeah, so they announced the series. It was kind of a mystery, the first two releases, because they released the Old Rippy and they also released the Bond and Lillard. But they also specified that Jimmy and Eddie Russell, even though we knew it was coming from Wild Turkey, that Jimmy and Eddie Russell were not involved in the process. So I had both, and they were good bourbons. They were average at best, but now remember, this is a 375 milliliter bottle, and they were selling it for about $50, sometimes more in other stores. So I think between the price and the, it kind of falling in a not so impressive flavor profile. It was kind of pushed aside. But now the difference is that brings us to tonight's bottle, where guess what? Eddie Russell decided to get involved in the Whiskey Baron series, and that brings us to WB Saffel, which has the magical hands of Eddie Russell all over this. So,
yeah. Well, but before you get into it, I think you pointed out something interesting, and I didn't get into this on my blog, and I don't know. I started to, and I thought, well, I'm not going to go this route, but I might just share it tonight. There were two things I noticed interesting about Old Rippy and Bond and Lillard. You had the Russells, the statement that the Russells were not involved with. And you can read the press release. We can all read the press release.
Exactly.
Okay. And so it says that they weren't involved at all. And then it says, but it was distilled at Wild Turkey. If you watch the Bourbon Pursuit episode, where they pick a barrel with Jimmy Russell, and so you have the guys from 1789B, Reed and Emerald, and you have Ed Bly, and you have the guys from Bourbon Pursuit. They're picking a barrel with Jimmy instead of Eddie, and Jimmy's asked about those two releases, and his remarks are kind of interesting. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he says, "Well, you don't see a Russell's name on that label, do you?" And it was kind of an awkward exchange. And then I caught something else interesting on this episode of Bourbon Pursuit with Eddie last week. He was talking about Long Branch and how they got into the filtration process with the filtering. And he says that, we've never done filtering, charcoal filtering at Wild Turkey before. I thought, yeah, you did. You did with Bond and Lillard, right? I don't know. It was just something I kind of caught. So maybe Eddie didn't do. Maybe Eddie and Jimmy didn't do
the question came up
filtering.
Yeah, question came up in the chat. Jason Estel asked, "So if Jimmy and Eddie weren't involved, then who was it? Bruce?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, and then so like who did the filtering then?
So who did they just give it to someone like, okay, you guys take care of this, but
or were they working on Long Branch right when Matthew McConaughey joined on, and then they quickly did it for Bond and Lillard after? I don't know, just the timeline doesn't really add up there. So I'm guessing that maybe they took the distillate and did, went to Campari, and Campari did some things. I don't know. It was just kind of an odd mystery there.
That's really, I got to go back and watch that and try to pick that out. That's really interesting tidbit.
Yeah. So it just, I just probably just stirred up a bunch of crap.
Anyway, let's check in on the chat here. Monica Willett says, "I love how Southern men always wear dress shirts." Random side.
I'll wear this every day.
Michael Hassan said they both compliment each other well. Oh, thank you, Michael. Yeah, this is just a really fun conversation. Yeah. So
having a great time.
Yeah, having a great. We have 82 in the chat. This is
wow,
people watching. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, this is really awesome. So with that,
we're back to Saffel. No mysteries here.
Yeah, it's Saffel. So David, I know you talked about the history a little bit of Saffel, who he was.
Right.
You want to give a quick
kind
of who WB Saffel was?
Yeah, William Butler Saffel. He was a distiller in the mid to late 1800s. He worked for Judge McBrayer, who made the famous Cedar Brook bourbon whiskey. Probably the most popular bourbon whiskey at its time, Cedar Brook, and remained so for a very long time. I'm not the expert on that. Maybe Fred Minnick or Michael Beach could give you more details on that. But WB Saffel was a distiller for McBrayer for 20 years. And after McBrayer died, Saffel started his own distillery in Lawrenceburg, and he created the WB Saffel sour mash whiskey that was very popular. And it remained so even past his death. He died in 1910. The brand continued on. Prohibition came, and Saffel Distillery went down, like a lot of other ones. He's not as well known as a name as other ones out there. His house still stands. Eddie used to live in his house with Bruce and them. His family, they lived in the Saffel house for a little while. And the house is now a funeral home. It's been added on to. The original structure is a little bit different than what it looks like now, but for the most, it's similar. But that's pretty much the history there. I do think it's funny that on the bottle, he looks like a giant. He looks like he's going to pick those people up and eat them. But
here's a close-up of the bottle, guys. You can see the house in the background. They're trying to go do like a foreground background thing, but yeah, he looks like he's going to crush the house.
Yeah, I was talking with another whiskey grab on Instagram. I was talking with him about how he kind of looked like the Green Giant, and they should have made like a corn husk robe for him, and could have, Booze Giant or something like that.
He looks a little bit like the wrestler Daniel Bryan, the guy that, he looks like Daniel Bryan. Yes, yeah, I'm gonna crush your house.
So it's a cool label, though. It's cool.
Yeah. So, guys, before we get into the tasting here, a little bit about Eric Waite just said this is the nerdiest bourbon live stream I've ever watched. Loving it. I'm glad. And Eric Waite loves him in some nerdy bourbon stream. Take care, Vito.
Silly and nerdy.
Thanks for coming in, Vito. I appreciate you coming in. Thanks, man. He's taking off. So WB Saffel is a straight bourbon whiskey. It's non-age stated, but it's reportedly a 6, 8, 10, and 12-year blend.
Right.
It's bottled at 107 proof, so it's a nice proof point. As we said, this is produced at Wild Turkey and apparently has the magical hands of Eddie Russell all over it. So
that's right. And Eddie's quite proud of this one.
Yeah, he is. So that's what I read. So I'm really excited to get into this one. So this has been sitting for about probably over almost an hour now. So
yeah, mine too.
So I want to give a little quick color. You guys can take a look at it. This definitely has a really nice dark copper, deep copper amber color to it. It's really nice, kind of a dark honey. And, it sticks to the glass very well. So you guys could kind of see the blur on the glass. It's really not moving too much. It's just kind of sticking there. So it's got a really beautiful whiskey in the glass. All right. So you ready to go to the nose on this, buddy?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Let's go in here.
And right off the bat, to me, Camp Nelson hits me in the face. But that's just me.
Wow. Yeah. This is... I'm definitely getting a little bit of that proof point there, but this is all I'm getting just vanilla bean and like deep molasses.
Yeah. It's like this, it's a mature Camp Nelson. It's not quite Russell's Reserve 2002, but I get some similarities there.
David, what's the price point on this? I forgot.
It's $50 for a 375 milliliter. So not cheap. Okay.
Yeah. Another $375, $50, pricey for 375, but
I've seen it or heard of it as low as 42. So, I'd buy a good many for that price.
Yeah. Let's see here. So we have, oh man, I'm still getting that beautiful orange cinnamon spice that I always love on a good Wild Turkey.
It's layered.
It's very layered because at first you get hit with these deep, dark, rich flavors of those brown sugars, the caramel, but then all of a sudden these bright citrus flavors come through and the cinnamon.
Yep. Exactly.
My goodness. It's more herbal than I thought it would be.
Yeah. It's definitely, like I said, I don't know what barrels went into this. I do get some Camp Nelson in it, but it could have some Tyrone barrels in there as well. I'm not sure.
I think that's amazing that you could pick out.
Answer me.
Yeah, that's amazing to me that you could pick out. Oh, this is the warehouse, and the it was a cold day in winter, and they picked a barrel from this section of the warehouse.
To me, this really just should have had a turkey on it. To be honest,
this is one of probably the nicest noses I've had. This reminds me of some of the better Russell's picks I've had. Really nice on the nose.
Definitely
super layered. The clove, the cinnamon. I'm picking up nutmeg now. It's
very complex.
Yeah,
and there's some 6-year in here. When you get to the palate, I can't taste any 6-year in here.
So we have a quick question from Monica I want to throw in there because I was actually wondering this myself before we get into the tasting. Do you drink anything besides Wild Turkey?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big Beam fan. I like Knob Creek Single Barrel. I like Booker's. I like Four Roses a lot. Love Four Roses. I have a lot of different single barrels from Four Roses that I appreciate. And from time to time, I'll grab, something, I don't know, like Evan Williams Bottled and Bond or something like that. And to me, that's a good bourbon to cook with. I know people get mad at me for saying that, but it really is. I love Bottled and Bond and a hamburger marinade.
I cook with Woodford Reserve all the time.
There you go. And so, I try all kinds of different stuff. I love trying different things. I've been disappointed lately in some of the things I've purchased. I bought the Old Forester 1910. I can't stand it. I mean,
I was pretty disappointed in that as well.
The 1910 was great. The 1910 is
we discussed this actually on our live stream yesterday. We had our first round table, another round called with a bunch of different whiskey.
I caught that. I was sick.
Yeah. 1910 came up, and I think it was John. He was saying how the John from Blind Whiskey Reviews. I think he was calling out how different each bottle was from one 1910 bottle to the other. Some of them are better than others.
No, I didn't know that.
I was wondering if it's one of the inconsistencies with over charring the barrel to such a point where they're almost falling apart. Maybe there's something weird in there that happened, but yeah, I would still go the 1920 all day.
Yeah, I still have it. I'm just going to give it away to a friend. It's not my thing, honestly.
Yeah, I will say that the 1910 got better a little bit over time. It got more of this coffee chocolate flavor as it got halfway down the bottle, which I did appreciate, and I love the flavor profile in the beginning. But I think because it's such a low proof, the finish just didn't do anything for me. So I think that's where it lacked for me. So, all right, you ready to do a little quick review on the Saffel? Let's go into it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh my. Wow, that first sip was unreal.
Not what you're expecting, huh?
No, not at all. I expected, I don't know why, but I had something expecting more towards Russell's Reserve 10 year on my mind. That is like a Werther's original caramel candy.
Yes, I would agree with you on that.
My goodness.
Caramel in it.
But the finish, though, it's not overly sweet. You still get that really beautiful, quintessential wild turkey alligator char flavor in there.
It's got a nice toasted caramel quality.
Yes.
The vanilla is very rich, like a homemade vanilla extract. It has almost like a smoky maple or something kind of in the background.
Do you get I just got like I might be crazy. I've never gotten this in a Russell. Do you get ginger?
I get ginger beer, like a ginger beer.
Ginger beer, maybe that's what it is.
On the palate, there's a heavy ginger beer.
What the hell is that? That's crazy.
It is. I think that's Camp Nelson. I think he's got some older Camp Nelson barrels in here. That would be my first guess. Is that I think he's got some like 12-year something Camp Nelson going on in here.
Yeah, there's some real crazy.
And it's 107 proof. I mean,
it doesn't drink like it. I mean, well, maybe my palate's a little bit warmed up from the Russells, but 107 proof.
2002 yet? Because to me, this has, it doesn't taste like 2000. I don't want people to get the wrong idea. It's kind of like if you've had George T. Stagg and you've had Stagg Jr.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is like to me. This is like 2002 Junior. There are elements in here that are similar, but it's not the same. But as far as I'm concerned, the $50 a pint is worth it in this whiskey. I can't say that for Old Rippy or Bond and Lillard #1. I've had Bond and Lillard 2, and it's great.
Yeah.
But this one,
I like the Old Rippy. I didn't think it was bad. I just wouldn't pay 50 for 375 for it. But this, I think I would pay another 50 for this.
Yeah, this is worth it to me. I mean, you got to think, how many LEs out there are $100 for a 750? So 50 for a 375, and they're sealed. I mean, so it's like you can get into one and have a sealed one left over. Whereas if you open a 750, you've committed. So I don't think it's that bad of a deal, honestly.
Yeah, and so the front of the palate is quintessential, deep, dark, beautiful, sweet, wild turkey. The finish also kind of mimics that, but the mid palate on this, where you're getting the deep vanillas,
Ginger beer.
the ginger beer flavor on it is crazy. And then, but you're still getting that. I'm still getting that really beautiful, that orange herbal note, that cherry that I get normally on a turkey. That is surprisingly really delicious.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. This is my second one, and you can see where I'm at.
Yeah, you've been diving into this. Wow.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start forcing myself to go to something else, because it has a draw. I'll be honest with you.
The sad thing is that you can go through this real fast, being a 375.
Yeah, it's not difficult. But it's one of these things that caught me by surprise. I had, and like Ryan's in the chat, Ryan had told me that Saffel was good. I had someone else tell me that Saffel was good, and I thought, well, good, we'll see. And wow, was he right? I mean,
yeah, this is really kind of blowing me away. This is amazing stuff.
It's basically, each year I do like a top, whiskeys of the year before. So when I get to the end of this year, I can promise you this is going to be a contender. I don't know, we know Cornerstone's coming out, Cornerstone rye.
Yep.
And there's going to be tons of single barrels coming out.
Speaking of single barrels, we have a question from Dan Trout. He's a big Russell's Reserve pick fan. He said, "What is the best Russell's Reserve single barrel pick you have ever tried that you can remember?"
Easy. Go on my website. There's a review. Just do a search for Woodland Wine Merchant or Woodland Wine. There is a short barrel that some fellas picked for Woodland Wine. It came out at 42 bottles. I believe it was from Warehouse M. I don't have the barrel number memorized, but amazing. I mean, amazing. I have one in my bunker, and I'm going to open it sometime for something special. I'm not sure what, but really, not probably. It was the best Russell's Reserve single barrel I've ever had. I've not had something. Now, the Single Cask Nation, which is not Russell's Reserve single barrel, Single Cask Nation has had a couple that have been mind-blowing. But that's a little bit different because it's, cask strength. So it's not a fair comparison. But damn, that Woodland Wine pick. Oh my God.
Yeah. Knowing Dan, as I know him, he's probably on the interwebs right now trying to find one. So
find one, get it. Because I will swear by it. If he doesn't like it, I will take it off his hands.
Where's Woodland Wines? Where is that?
It's in Tennessee. It's in Nashville.
It's in Tennessee. Okay.
Yeah.
Or
do good picks.
Yeah. What's the distribution on Saffel? Is this countrywide or?
I wish I knew. I know that the original Whiskey Barons was limited to a certain number of states, and then after it didn't sell as well as I think they wanted it to, it kind of went everywhere, or mostly everywhere. Excuse me. I'm not sure about Saffel. I need to find that out because I've had more than one person ask me that, and I feel bad that I don't know. I will reach out to Campari and find out, and I'll put it in the comments on this video.
Okay.
If y'all can give me a day or so, and I'll see if I can find out what states are distributing this. I know it's in South Carolina because I was able to get it retail.
As soon as you find it, I'll throw it in the about section here on the video.
So if you know your state's Campari rep, or who at your distributor works with Campari, ask them about it. Pick up the phone, send them an email, send them a direct message through social media, and ask them about it because South Carolina has an awesome Campari rep, and she made sure that we had this, and she made sure we had 2002 when we weren't on the list of states that were supposed to get 2002 last year. She made sure we got a couple places. Yeah,
we got 2002 here in Ohio, but unfortunately it was a lottery, so it wasn't available to the masses. You had to.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, $250 for 2002 versus $50 for a 375 of this. I'm going to tell you that the better deal is with this Saffel. I'm just going to be honest with you. And people may disagree with me, but you can spend $100 and get 2 pints of Saffel and you will probably have just as much, if not more, satisfaction than the $250 that you spent on Russell's Reserve 2002. And I'm not knocking 2002 because 2002 is great. I rated it the same as Saffel, but
I told you. So I think next week I'm going to an event here in Ohio, and Eddie Russell's going to be there. So
I remember that.
I paid a ticket. I bought a ticket, and
that right.
Yeah, it's a private. It's a tasting at a local hotel, and Eddie, I'm going to get to meet Eddie Russell. I'm super excited, and one of the pours we're going to try is the 2002. So I'm glad that I had this because I cannot wait to taste that. I've heard the oak character on the 2002 is a little bit off, so I'm not going to make any assumptions now. I just want to taste it for myself, but.
Yeah. 2002 is great. Like I said, I rated it the same as Saffel, but I think what I'm saying is that you're right. There's some oak characteristics in 2002 that come across like a little bit of a nutshell, like walnut shell or something.
Yeah.
A little bit on the bitter side. It's mainly on the finish. It's a very full flavored, excellent bourbon. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But for $250, it's kind of like after 1998, I was like, oh man, I wish it was. But they're different. They're not the same. I'm not saying that Saffel and 2002 are the same. I'm saying it's that senior junior thing that you get with like GTS and Stag Junior. So,
okay, so let's see. It's 10:06. All right, it's not that late. So guys, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to ask some questions about some wild turkey. And while you're doing that, definitely give me an @ the Mash and Drum so I could see it if you have a question for David. And while you guys are getting your questions in, I'm going to crack open this Wild Turkey 13 year.
Oh, okay. We're going to do it, huh?
We're doing it. We're doing it. Why not? I bought it for a reason. I was saving it for when you came on, so I'm going to crack this baby open.
Oh, okay. It's sealed, huh?
It is sealed. I haven't opened it yet. There it is.
So, wow. Okay, so what I want you to do is compare that to the 2018 Russell's Reserve 10.
Oh, crap. Which glass was it? All right, so my Wild Turkey's over there.
You have to. You can.
Oh, I have it right here. Okay, I have a glass. All right, I knew
it.
I'm actually going to pour a little bit more here because I have the same glass here.
Okay.
Pour some Russell's Reserve 10.
I just want to say I've had a great time tonight. This has been a fun show. I really appreciate your show, by the way. I really like it a lot. I think you have a really nice production, and I think that you approach things from a very enthusiast level. And there's other podcasts out there that do a lot of entertainment and this type of thing. And I like that yours stays centered on the whiskey. And you relate to your fans, and I like that a lot. I think that's something to be commended.
I really appreciate that. You kind of called out my Russell's Reserve versus Rare Breed video I did, and I really appreciate. And that that's what it's really about for me. I mean, I've actually gotten comments that wow, you're so excited about the whiskey. It's almost like it's coming off like a commercial, but that's my true nature of when I review whiskey. I get really excited about it. I like to talk about it, and I like to, give my best indications of what I'm tasting. And I try to do that in the most honest way possible. And obviously try to give you some good production as well. So
your production's great. I just like that it's very whiskey centered, and it's very honest and it's approachable. I think your notes are real accurate. It's not so much about the entertainment and storytelling as it is just focusing on the whiskey and the notes and the facts and relating to your fans. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, I love the one thing I really wanted to focus on was the history of the history of the whiskey that I'm talking about, because I think it's important to know where your whiskey is coming from and the people that are involved in creating it. So yeah. that was one of my differentiators I really want to talk about. A lot of guys just go on screen, they do their review, and I get that, and there's obviously a place for that. And some of the guys that I watch, I learned from just doing that, but I wanted to bring a historic aspect to it as well.
Yeah.
Christine Deem says, thank you. She says, I have a terrific show. Okay, Dan Trout said Jason Estelle's question. Let's see what he has. Well, Jason Estelle, let me scroll back up here. Get him to sign your.
There's one from Jason that says, "Do you think they'll continue Kentucky Spirit for much longer?"
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, I think that the new design. It's. I promised I wouldn't rant too much about it anymore because I don't want to be the guy that just sits there and keeps. It's not the best. It's certainly not what they had before. Here's what I will say. The whiskey that I've had in the new bottles is excellent. And I think a lot of it is because it's coming from Camp Nelson. And I've had 3 Camp Nelson Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirits, and all 3 of them have been excellent. Completely blew me away. I think it handles the dilution really well. And I think that might be, again, what you're finding in that Russell's Reserve 10-year, And so I think that it will go on for another year or so at least. And depending on sales, we'll see what happens. I do know that there's some private selections coming out this year from some folks that I know pick damn good barrels. So as long as those do well, I think that you'll see it continue. Yeah. Maybe they redesign the bottle though in time. I really, I think that if they were to do that, it would sell much better.
So 2 more questions that came in. Antonio from Whiskey Quest and also Richie Z. Richie Z came in first. So his question was, what is your opinion on the Diamond and the Master's Keep bottles?
Well, the Master's Keep, to me, they're so different. 17 has a very unique profile to it. As Eddie would say, it's the most unique wild turkey they've ever made. I pretty much have to agree with him on that. That 17 years was 17 years mostly in brick houses over at Old Taylor, which is now Castle and Key. And it has a very unique profile because it aged slowly over those years. There wasn't a lot of push and pull with the wood that you get in a like a metal frame, or a wood frame in a metal clad rick house. They were aged for some time in the traditional wild turkey rick houses, but for the most, they were in those stone or brick rick houses. And so it has a very unique vibe that some people love, and some people are kind of like, it's a little bit too oaky for me. Decades is, to me, the best of the bunch if you're looking for a straight bourbon. It's a blend of 10 and 20, and it's, to me, excellent. I would buy any day. Revival is not for everyone, but if you appreciate a different finish on your whiskey, highly recommend it. If you're into like some of the crazy finishes that High West does, or if you like Angel's Envy, you're not going to get that much of an influence. But it's there. It's still turkey. It's unique. It's one of my all-time favorites, and I think you should try it if you like finished whiskeys. Finally, Diamond. Diamond gets a bad rap. Diamond is a perfectly fine bourbon. I don't know if it's exactly worth $125 like you see at retail, but you can find it usually for $100. If you're looking for more of a classic turkey vibe, I would recommend Diamond. I think it didn't sell well at first because you went from tradition, which had this nice metal base and a wooden box, and it had a lot darker.
Yeah, packaging does a lot, definitely.
And then you have Diamond look like a Booker's box, as the guys at Bourbon Pursuit mentioned, and it didn't sell well. I have Diamond. I'm on my 2nd bottle of Diamond. I have to kind of be in the mood for it, but if I'm looking for that classic turkey vibe, and I'm kind of talking about more of the turkey that you find in the 2000s. I think it does that very well. Yes, it's only 91 proof, but it's closer to barrel strength than most people think. They took barrels that were below 101 to make Diamond, so that's why Diamond is 91 proof. It's very close to the 13-year that matter of fact, with the first time I ever had the 13-year, I was like, this tastes like Diamond. And I went and tried it side by side. I'm like, oh, Diamond's a little bit more complex than the 13-year, but they're very similar.
One other quick question before we get to this quick tasting before we sign off here. The Antonio over at Whiskey Quest, he asked, have you heard anything about a bottled and bond wild turkey? And also to kind of piggyback on that, I know they asked it in on the interview with Eddie, but have you heard anything more about a possible barrel-proof Russells?
Okay, two things. Okay, so the bottled and bond, there is a bottled and bond wild turkey. It's called American Spirit. American Spirit is the only bottled and bond wild turkey. It's 15 years, and it's 100 proof. So it's not the 101, it's 100, just like a bottled and bond should be. And it's great. To me, it actually tastes like diamond. It's like a proofed up diamond. So it's like a fuller flavored diamond. It's a similar profile to diamond, but a lot richer. Are they doing another bottle and bond? I don't know if they are. I did mention to Eddie that, I was enjoying the American Spirit that I had. It's not my favorite, but, there was a lot there that I like about it. And he said, I really should do a bottle and bond again. And I was like, yeah, you should. So I don't know if that means that he is going to do one again, but he did mention that he would like to do another bottle and bond again one day. So that's possible. Barrel proof Russells. Eddie wants it. Bruce wants it. I don't see, anybody on the wild turkey side pushing back. I think it's more of a thing with Campari. Look, let's be honest. If you look at it like a business, the 110 proof is selling just fine. People can't even get in the door to do barrel picks now.
That's true.
So it's really hard to argue with the suits that you need to do barrel proof when the 110 is selling so well. And that's just numbers, Now, do I think they'll eventually have it? I do. I don't think it's going to be this year. I think it'll probably be next year if it happens. Let's just keep our fingers crossed and hope that it does. I think that down the road, I think the plan is to have the private selections. They will become barrel proof for Russell's Reserve, and you'll have the shelf. Russell's will be the 110, and then Kentucky Spirit will just stay 101. But that's the plan. I don't know if it's going to happen. There's no rush for it to happen right now.
Yeah, I don't think they need to rush, but I think if a barrel-proof Russell's does hit the market, that's going to be one of the most sought-after bottles that you're going to come across.
Sure. Look at Single Cask Nation. They're gone in minutes.
Monica Willits wanted me to tell you, please tell David he rocks. Well, he's more neat. Great stream.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monica.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to compare this real quick. So this is the Wild Turkey 13
with the 10.
And this is the Distiller's Reserve. This is an overseas. This is an international release against the. You said put it against the newer Russell's Reserve, the one with the 13 stuff in it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's what I'm doing.
A similar proof.
Very similar proof. The nose on the Russell's 10 definitely beats the 13. Yeah, I'm just off the bat. Just from my quick first impressions here, the 13 has more of that classic 101, not the 10-year 101, but the regular 101, that classic orange zest, cinnamon note on the nose, whereas the 10 is still coming off as deeper and richer. Mm-hmm. Wow, very interesting. All right, I'm going to go in the 13 here and see, because I couldn't wait to taste this stuff. So, well, wow. Is it bad to say I'm a little disappointed in the 13?
Nope. Because join the club.
Yeah, it's thinner than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's not the 12. It's a huge step down from the old 12-year.
This comes in at 91 proof. Those classic turkey flavors are there. It's just that it just exits so quickly, unfortunately.
Yeah, for anyone that really wants to spend the money on the 13, I highly recommend that you just get Diamond instead, because the 13 is 700 milliliters. Diamond is 750. And with Diamond, you get 13 to 16 years. And with the 13, it's just 13 and who knows what. I just think it's a better deal, Diamond over the 13. I think it tastes a little bit better. It's very close.
I am enjoying the finish on the 13.
Yeah, it has a nice little oaky finish, but that oaky finish, if you look for it, is there in the 10 as well. It's just not as much, but it's there.
Yeah.
It's it would be hard for me. It's like $30 for the Russell's Reserve 10 with a 13-year in it. Or who knows what on the secondary for the 13-year export, 700 milliliters.
I didn't actually pay a high price for that. I actually got a good deal on it, I must say. But
if you can get it at the retail overseas price, which is about $45, then go for it.
Yeah, it wasn't 45.
Uh,
But I will say that the finish on the I do like the finish on the 13 on the Wild Turkey 13, but the Russell's 10, this newer one with some of the 13-year-old bourbon in it, is definitely a little bit more rounded and has a better finish. It's got that oakiness to it, but it gives you a nice little kick of cinnamon red hot sweetness in there, which I love. So
now the 13 versus Saffel, what would you say?
Oh, Saffel, hands down.
There you go. Yeah,
that's not even a fair fight.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, giant Saffel man would crush the 13.
Yeah,
it's like giant Saffel man would just knock this one out of the park. So
yeah, it's quite surprising. I like I said, I was told it was good, and then when I tried it, I was like, "You ain't kidding! This stuff is great." And I'll be honest with you, I went and bought like as many as I could get my hands on.
I don't blame you.
It's a short release, and it hits all the marks for me. I don't care what the percentages are. You know, how much 6, 8, 10, or 12 is in it, because to me it just tastes mature. It tastes older than 10 years by far. And like I said, it's 107 proof, but when you compare it to 110 proof single barrels, it over half of the Russell Reserve single barrels I've had, this blows it away. I'd say maybe even 75% of them, it blows it away. It's that good. There's very few Russell's Reserve single barrels that I can say really stomp on Saffel.
Yeah, I'm gonna. They don't have this in Ohio yet. I don't know if they didn't have any of the Bond and Lillard. They didn't have the Bond and Lillard or the Old Rippy here in Ohio. So I'm gonna go hunt for this next time I go to Kentucky, and I'm gonna buy up as many as I can. So, so for all you guys watching, Bond and Lillard, Old Rippy, meh. If you really want a true expression, a really great Wild Turkey expression, then the WB Saffel is the way to go. It's really good.
And let me mention too that there's two Bond and Lillards.
Yes,
Bond and Lillard 1 and Bond and Lillard 2. Bond and Lillard 2. Bond and Lillard 2 is great. Bond and Lillard 1, Bond and Lillard 2, I've had it. I had a sample. I actually have a bottle now. I just haven't cracked it, but I had a nice sample that I had, and it's excellent. It's not Saffel, but it's a lot better than Bond and Lillard 1. So I can recommend 2. Depends on what your budget is. It's hard for me to say yet whether it's worth the 50 or 375, but I can promise you that Saffel is worth the 50. At least my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So before we sign off, guys, I think for one of you out there, we still have 68 people watching, which is amazing.
Wow.
I want to give away a sample of this WB Saffel. I think it's too good to not to share, especially for anyone out there who doesn't have it. So, let's give away a sample of this that I'll send you. I'll send this right out tomorrow. This will be a great sample. I think you guys, somebody out there really needs to try this. So I'm going to give away a sample of the WB Saffel tonight before we sign off. And David, you know what? I'll just throw a question to you.
Okay.
Is there any just I don't know, give the chat some kind of, I don't know, is there a trivia question we've talked about tonight? Let's see. Trying to think what would be a good.
Well, one thing I'll mention, we had talked about rick houses.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay. You have McBrayer, which has a couple rick houses. I think only 2 are in service right now because the other ones are so old and falling apart. But what's interesting is that those McBrayer rick houses are on the location. They're across from Four Roses, and in that location was Old Joe Distillery. And Old Joe was the distillery that Jimmy Russell's father worked at. So there's a connection there with the Russell family. And what I find really interesting with all of these Lawrenceburg distilleries is that they're all connected with each other.
Yeah.
Saffel was married to a Bond of Bond and Lillard, of the Bond family that made Bond and Lillard. And then you have of the Bond and Lillards, you had one of the Rippies married one of the Lillards. So it's like you have all this connection here in Lawrenceburg with these distilleries that go back ages. And it all kind of ties in together with the active distilleries that they have now, like Four Roses and Wild Turkey. And so there's this rich heritage there. I think that Lawrenceburg is kind of forgotten about. You hear a lot about, Louisville and Frankfurt and these other areas, but Lawrenceburg kind of gets you say Lawrenceburg, people immediately think Wild Turkey and Four Roses, and that's it. And they just kind of like, that's it. But it's really, that's not it. I mean, there were lots of distilleries that came before, and there's a rich history there. And I mentioned this in my post this week. I'm surprised that someone hasn't written more about just that whole Lawrenceburg area, because there's a lot going on there. You had Old Moore, you have, like I mentioned, Bonnie Lillard, you had Old Rippy, Cedar Brook, you had all these brand names from long ago, and there's many more of them, and I'm not even thinking of them. But it's really interesting. Even the first Pappy, came from Lawrenceburg. A lot of people don't realize that. It wasn't even a wheated bourbon. The first Pappy 23 wasn't a wheated bourbon. And there's so much rich heritage, bourbon heritage in Lawrenceburg. It's been forgotten about. Someone needs to do something about it, write about it. It's not going to be me, because I'm focused mainly on wild.
Well, I think a lot of the beauty of bourbon and the beauty of the master distillers and the history is that, a lot of people just coming into bourbon and getting to know them may think that off the bat, a lot of bourbon and distilleries and master distillers are kind of all out to get each other or outdo each other, where they are all extremely collaborative. And I think that's a beautiful thing that you could see that with every distillery that you visit. There's a collaboration and a family aspect to the bourbon trail as you make your way through Kentucky. And it's just something that you feel and something in the air. It's really a beautiful thing. There are probably some distilleries out there that are a little bit more cutthroat than others, but as far as bourbons and distilleries that help each other out, there's a lot of that going on. And I think there's a lot of history there to be said for that.
Sure.
So with that, I'm going to give away one sample tonight, guys, with the WB Saffel, and this is what we're going to do. So the first one in the chat, and David, I'll have you call this out. The first one you see. So basically, all I want you guys to do is tell me what WB stands for in WB Saffel. David said it before. I said it once before. If you guys could say it, the first one to say it in the chat will get a sample from me. So we'll keep an eye on the chat.
Yeah, I'm looking. I also want to say I give a special thank you to my patrons. You guys are so supportive, and you keep me going. I check the website all the time just to see if I've got messages and notifications. And it's I was a little bit out of service yesterday because I was sick as a dog, so I was a little behind on my messages and notifications. But anyway, okay, I'm looking at okay, we have a. Hold on. Christine Deems says William Butler. I think she might be the first one.
Yeah, she got it. Christine Deems. Yes.
Cool. Free sample.
Yeah, and Christine Deems just recently won my blend competition, Blend-A-Geddon. She came in with the #1 blend. So, Christine, I'll send you this sample. Congrats. I'll send you the sample along with your prize pack. For those of you guys who haven't seen my glasses yet, I finally got them here in the flesh.
Those are killer. I might have to copy you.
Yeah. Here are actually, I'm going to pour this out here. I just have water in it. So this is my new Mash and Drum curved bourbon glass. But on the bottom,
yeah, there it is. Yeah.
On the bottom there is my my toast. It's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share with. So when you're drinking it and you finish, you make sure you shared that whiskey with somebody. So
oh man, that's killer. I would copy you, but I wish I'd come up with that.
So with that, I want to say thank you to David for coming on. This was an absolutely amazing show. Just a lovely time here, going through these bourbons, talking turkey. So much history there. So before we sign off, David, let them know where to find you, all your social media. Just kind of go through that.
Okay. All right. My website is rarebird101.com. That's my blog. That's where you're going to find all my articles that I do weekly. And there's other information on there about bottle codes. There's a timeline. There's some other information that you can gather. And let's see, I'm on Instagram at rarebird101. I'm on Twitter at rbird101. And finally, patreon.com/rarebird101. That is where you're going to find most of my content, because honestly, I post to my blog once a week, but I try to post to Patreon at least every other day or so.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little bit more than others. It just depends on what I've got going on. But I really appreciate everyone that has pledged and is a part of that group. I've got some barrel picks coming later in the year. And I just want to say thanks to everyone for their support. And hey, you know, I had a great time, man. I really enjoy doing these things, and this is one of my favorite ones I've done. So
I appreciate that, David. Yeah, and you're definitely one of my favorite guests I've had. I'd love to have you on again, especially, you know what, maybe when you get one of those picks in, we could I'll get a bottle off you and we could like taste them here and go through it. But want to thank everybody. Just a couple of quick programming notes here. This Friday I'll be on live on Eric Waite's channel. He's having some guests for Bourbon Month. Also, I want to say next week, I'm going to have another guest on. Right now, I am slated to have Brian Hara on the channel, who is the author of the book Bourbon Justice, which was one of my favorite reads that I did in the last couple months. So I'll let you guys know if that's still happening. Right now, it's slated to happen next week on Wednesday night with Brian. And I'm really excited about that. Talk to him about some of the legal and some of that, all that legal history throughout bourbon that has shaped the way some of our copyrighted and just a crazy amount of shaping by the bourbon industry, how it went into shaping some of the
too.
Yeah, exactly. So so for that, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for the support. And with that, as I always say, it's not about the whiskey. It is the people you share with. So cheers, guys, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Sure.